So I want to make a distinction and a clarification between addiction and food and colonizing. Because yes, I have made some aggressive distinctions about the addiction of saving people. And I've released that addiction of saving people because there's no way to do that. There's no way to save anyone else. And of course, it's about representation, but what are you representing and what are you colonizing and what are you inflicting upon somebody else? And then sobriety. And so there's a lot of distinctions that must be met and made around, especially my area, because people can mischaracterize what I'm doing and project what it is that they're doing. And so addiction, food, and releasing colonizers. So overnight, sometimes I get trolls. I call them colonizers or spiritual rapists. And they say what they say, and that's fine. They only see maybe snippets of my information, but they don't see the bigger picture. And the reason why people are dying suddenly is because they treat their sickness over time, and then those treatments compound their issues, and the disease becomes so astronomical that they can't get ahead of it because of all the treatments and the lack of change and the lack of whatever else. And so, yeah, the last 7 years, I have been extremely sick, releasing the demons and also releasing the toxicity of our society and the paradigms that they perpetrate and promote. And then I get tired of all the looping in the hurts and the anger that someone didn't meet their expectations. And I've been there too, okay? And I realized that it doesn't pay to have friends. It really doesn't. It might for a temporary time, but over time, it does not pay to have friends because eventually your needs will be so great that your friends will not be able to live up to your expectations. And that's the danger of friends and family, is that eventually your need will be so great that when your expectations are not met, someone isn't giving you a ride, someone isn't paying enough attention to you, someone isn't giving you a birthday party, someone isn't doing this and doing that. Oh my gosh. And then your friends and family become then a slave to your needs. And I found myself going down that road for a minute. And I was very hurt by all the expectations I had around the people around me. And I realized, oh my God, this is what happens when people start deteriorating so aggressively. The expectations become astronomical. And they enslave animals, they enslave their children, they enslave their mother, their father, their sister, their brother, their friends and family. And so their friends and family, who are also just as needy, will also then have those enormous expectations to be reciprocated. They expect that, and then they become each other's Satan and Savior at the same time. And that's a crazy thing to be, is when your friends and family become the Satan and the Savior, because the need becomes so great because the deterioration is so astronomical. And so when I finally realized that, holy shit, okay, now I get it about the addiction and the food and the colonizing, and then people reinforcing their need for people around them, and also the destruction. And so, yeah, so when I'm sitting here on my own, I'm not colonizing anyone. I'm not actively trying to inject myself into anyone's world. I don't troll anyone. I'm in a contractual relationship with someone who I control how much they inject information into me on so many different levels. I do the best I can not to inject so much information onto my husband because he can only handle so much. And so that's the contractual obligations that I'm in, is negotiating our survival. And that's really where my priorities lay within, is my contractual obligations with my creditors, with my government, and with my significant other, who I signed on the dotted line that I would take care of in sickness and in health, till death do us part, whoever dies first or at all. And so I get these trolls that come in and say that I'm addicted to saving people. No, I'm just here releasing demons and observing everything. I don't try to convert anyone. I'm not selling a religion. I'm not selling a lifestyle. I have no addictions. I don't have any children. I have no animals. I have no friends per se. So I'm not forcing anyone into slavery. I'm not forcing animals into slavery. I'm not forcing children into slavery. I'm not forcing anyone around me into slavery. And my husband chooses to be in partnership with me. No one is forcing him to be around me at all. And I make sure that I don't abuse the privilege of being his wife. I don't abuse it at all. I know exactly who I married, and I'm very thankful for the kind of person he is. And I'm sure he's very thankful to the kind of person I am. So let me read this. So addiction, food, and releasing colonizers. I release the demons daily in my personal life, and then on my Facebook, I release demons occasionally. The trolls, right? Colonizers never quit. They just shapeshift. Sometimes they act like, oh, I want to be your friend. I had to release a person I let on my Facebook because I'm open to bring people on my Facebook, but when they start becoming a colonizer, yeah. Because there's always, I understand, once in a very great while, someone says something, but then it becomes a pattern. When me says something in conflict, they're trying to correct me, they're trying to impose a way that would be opposite of where I'm coming from. I'll tell you, I've been in the conspiracy world and all this shit for at least 12, 13 years, okay? So there's nothing new that anybody out there in the conspiracy world, in the resistance world can tell me, all right? So it's kind of funny watching how these colonizers come in and try to commandeer my information and correct me, right? And so colonizers never quit. They just shapeshift. If you fancy yourself a colonizer, then you better have a license to colonize and take over and attempt to convert. But then you'll also be a party to their destruction. That's why you are in a partnership with the government, with your licenses, and the health and wellness world. Okay, so you have a license to colonize and convert someone, and sometimes the outcome is deadly. Most times, actually, all the time, the outcome eventually becomes deadly. Now look at all the people in the conspiracy world, in the activist world. They're purposely injecting their information to somebody else. They're acting like they have a license to colonize by recommending pills, powders, and supplements, and detoxes, or whatever. And so if you want another analogy right around the energy, healing, holistic, medical, health, and wellness, and vaccine world, license to colonize. Colonizers are trolls. They attempt to convert from within instead of being a representation and speaking their piece. They must colonize other people. And so that's the valuable information about colonizers and trolls. They also try to enslave somebody else with their personal ideas, and they purposely inject themselves, and so they're like vaccines. When you purposely inject yourself into someone's world, then you become a vaccine and a colonizer and even a spiritual rapist. That's pretty interesting, huh? That's why the system is cleaning itself up. There's enough of that in the past. We don't need any more of that in the future. And so, yes, back in the past and even today, we have people who are not evolving and are deadly, and the system has to go and regulate them on so many levels. And sometimes the life in their body is deadly, and so the system has to go and regulate them until the person keeps choosing to be regulated out of existence. I understand the concepts behind all of it, but I don't like the mischaracterization, the misrepresentation that you're saving people's lives with all of your remedies and surgeries and therapies. Okay, even your prescription drugs, even your cannabis. No, you're not saving anyone's life. You're just anesthetizing them. That's all you're doing is anesthetizing them so they don't feel anything. And so if you're not strong enough to kick the colonizers out of your body, mind, and spirit on Facebook, then you'll be taken over and destroyed by a colonizer. Okay? And so when people don't understand the difference between addiction and eating food, they mistake one for the other. And so that's what people mistake what I'm doing. What I'm doing is like a food because I'm releasing demons. I've taken on all this information the last 50 years. And since I don't really want to pay a therapist to release my demons, okay, and I'm not going to, then I'm going to develop a platform to represent my lifestyle, my belief systems, and I will still abide by the government. And I release the demons from all the food and information that I have inhaled and injected and also eaten. And I'm going to release the demons and then align my northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere together so my gut and my brain are finally aligned, and I'm promoting life and longevity, and I'm not misrepresenting the path and what it's going to take to do that. It's not easy. Not everybody can do it. And so when people don't understand the difference between addiction and eating food, they mistake one for the other. For example, smoking pot is an addiction, and I think eating food and they think, not I think, and they think, Jesus Christ. I hate when okay, I'm going to correct that. And they think eating food is an addiction. Give me 1 second. And they think eating food is an addiction. So they smoke pot and they demonize food and they say food is poison, but they're smoking their pot every single day. That's the lack of distinction between food and addiction, and that's why people are sick. And so I'm going to just, for example, I'm going to correct that. I got to make sure I correct that because I don't want that to be mischaracterized. So give me 1 second. I have to correct that. Wow. That's some crazy shit, man. Did I put it on here? Okay. Okay. So, give me 1 minute. For example. Okay. I just got to make sure it's correct. And that's a big one. Because I don't think food is an addiction. Absolutely not. And that would be a major mischaracterization on my end, and I don't want that. Okay. But I swear the system purposely changes the tenses or changes the, what is it? They're coming from they change perspective. Like they're forcing you to maybe read your stuff. Okay. And Titans and Giants. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. This is the thing. This is part of my process of being extremely correct in what I'm doing. Is being responsible for the information so people don't get confused. And that's what I do. All right. So when I said, yeah, identity fostered by friends and family is a slavery, and that is perpetuating major suffering, developing aggressive disease, and then eventual death suddenly. Your identity was colonized in you by your family and your friends and the government at the time. The system is setting you free, but will you survive the freedom or will you die for your freedom, essentially being set free into the universe? And so then the addiction to food and releasing colonizers. And so then I said, for example, smoking pot is an addiction and they think eating food is an addiction. So they smoke their pot and they demonize food and say that food is poison, but they're smoking their pot every single day. So they're on gluten-free everything, right? And that's the lack of distinction between food and addiction. And that's why people are sick. And if you don't realize that distinction, then you'll think your addictions are food and you won't eat your food because you think it's an addiction. And other people just justify addiction because it's their food, but not literally their food. They live on the addictions and demonize the food. I know I'm being redundant, but I really have to get this point across. So right now my Facebook is my food, but saving people is an addiction. And so releasing my demons like food and people hunting and chasing demons are their addictions. And so why is my Facebook like a food when I'm releasing demons? Because what do you do after eating food? You have to release the demons. And sometimes people hold on to their demons for years because of the medical holistic system. And so they project that my food is an addiction when their addictions are mistaken for their food. And so they expect everyone around them to hold on to their shit and not release demons. And that's why people want to shut other people up, because if you're not turning your shit into children, then you should shut up and die according to them. No. So that's what happens. So when you're not releasing those demons, right? Your shit literally will turn into children. It will turn into a sexual reproduction. That's what the antibodies do. Is they are the incubus and the succubus. And so when you're trying to release your demons and people don't want to hear what you have to say, they want you to shut up. They essentially want to turn your crap into children just like them. And if not, then they want you to shut up and die. And that's a crazy flipping thing. And that's essentially what colonizers do, is they try to take over and destroy from within. And they'll befriend you and say this and that, or they'll purposely inject themselves into your world and troll you. That's what trolls do. They're colonizers. Okay? And so that's what you have to understand about trolls, is they are colonizers and they have no boundaries. And when you have colonizers who have no boundaries, that's why you get so much of the suffering. And you have these children who are being forced into a situation that they have no control over, and they essentially become the next generation of suffering. Okay, and then it becomes someone like this example. In my opinion, if you have to reproduce memes about somebody fucking you over, somebody not your friend, or somebody not acting like they should, then maybe you should not have any friends, because eventually they won't live up to your expectations. So there you go. When there is so much need, and you have deteriorated to such an extent, nobody will live up to your expectations as a friend or a family. Nobody will. Because your needs are so much more than what your friends and family can support. And so when friends and family leave you, it wasn't because they were never your friend. No, they were your friend. But your need became so astronomical, they couldn't afford to be your friend anymore. They're either dying off, or they get so disgusted with the expectations. And then you become nasty, or say, oh, well, you're not a real friend if you don't do this, 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 and this. If you're my friend, you would do this, this, and this. And it becomes a manipulation. And so I said, I don't want to be friend to anyone. Nope, I'll have my husband and I, and he's my karma and I'm his karma, but no friends in my world. I'm not buying or selling them. I'm not forcing expectation on them. And I'm not going to allow, their deterioration to suck the life out of me, because I find that when you are a very able person, the people who are not will suck the life out of you until they get you to their level. And then you suck the life out of each other. And then one person will either die from that situation or have to leave it to save themselves. And again, I'm not willing to go down that road or even see what that road would look like in my world. So I just walked the fuck away. Because I knew even a couple of years ago how bad it was going to be. So I walked the fuck away from everything. Because I knew how bad it was going to be. I knew how much need there was going to be when people started deteriorating to such an extent that the expectations would be so much more aggressive and higher. And the manipulation would be even more. And then you get trapped in the trappings of wealth of friends and family, and then it becomes a destruction. You see how that shit works? So when you have to keep repeating how somebody pretended to be your friend, and whatever the fuck people get all bitchy about when someone doesn't live up to their expectations, then maybe you should not have any friends. Maybe you should be by yourself. Maybe you're the one that fucked them over and you're projecting. And I'll tell you, fucking people over means something different to different people. People could be perceiving standing up for yourself as fucking somebody over. And so if you want people to be 100% perfect friend to you, then don't have any friends, so you won't have any expectation, any excessive expectation from them. Set everyone around you free so they're not put in a fear that you're going to unfriend them because they didn't do something for you. The people who left you set themselves free from your excessive expectations and need. If you need mommy, go to mommy. Go to your parents until their parents die. That's what happens with these kids. People can't support their needs until they have mommy and daddy, until mommy and daddy are not there anymore. And then who's next? Their wife or their husband or whatever, until they suck the life out of them. And then who's next? I mean, it becomes crazy. And so the best of friends are people you don't enslave into a very narrow paradigm that if they don't fit within, then you have to play the bad guy or the good guy. If you can't be a friend to yourself, no one will live up to your expectations. Once you are a friend to yourself, everyone will live up to your whatever expectations you hold, because humans do what they do. They're not always going to please you and be around for you and be there for you and give you company and gifts and money. And if you have to reproduce children to keep you company, then you were never a friend to yourself. And that's the issue with our society, is people reproducing the pain and suffering and trauma and then projecting it and looking for the people with the same trauma and then inflict aggressive expectations, and they call it family. So yeah, no one's your friend, really. They're just people that are willing to play the game of playing the part. But they're not your friend, but they're playing the part. No, they're doing it until they can't do it anymore. When they can't do it anymore, they either die or they walk away. Or they'll just pay you lip service and be like this, but in reality, they can't afford to be your friend. There's too much. It's too much. Oh, that's right. Okay. There's always that, the what do you call it? The skits, the imitation. Going through the motions, the holidays, the parties, the get-togethers. Yeah. I guess if that's what friendship is okay. So that's the slavery system. People unhappy with themselves, surrounding themselves by people who are unhappy with themselves, and then saying they're all happy together. If you're not happy alone, you can't possibly be happy together with anyone. So what do? I just sit here and release the demons of the toxicity of our society, of the old world. And I don't have any friends who will be offended by what I say, right? Because if you don't have any friends, then there's no fear in losing them. That's the freedom. We don't have family, there's no fear in losing them. I have the freedom. People who have friends and family are not free. They're not allowed to say anything against the group or anyone that represents what you might say in that group. Just like the mafia. I mean, this is a study of the mafia. They studied the different gangs to understand the codes. Code of silence, the code of hierarchy, the code of everything, right? And that's great. That was a great model. It's an amazing model. That's why I actually like to watch a lot of videos about the mafia, the old world, because it's so like, wow. It is a model that has stood the test of time. Just like the mafia, you can't say anything against the family or you'll be destroyed or cast out. And if you are dependent on your family and friends, then you are forced into a conscription. You're essentially a soldier. You're not allowed to do anything outside of the expectations of your friends and family. So by all intents and purposes, it's the fakery and the slavery, yeah. And I guess if that's what you want to live by, it's all fakery and then the lack of growth and evolution and change, then you'll say, oh, I don't have any to defend myself. Defending yourself. See people out there, they're trying to break free from their friends and family and expectations, and they can't. And so they're suffering. But they still surround themselves by friends and family and get pissed off when someone doesn't live up to their expectations. And they think, oh, that person was never my friend because they didn't do this, this, and this for me. They didn't buy me a gift. They weren't there when I needed them, when I called them. I mean, what? And that's a suffering in of itself. Okay, and so I don't have to defend myself, right? By defending yourself, that's what they say. And then they become a parody of their own lifestyle and belief system. And that's the suffering of itself. What do they say? The larger the group, the faker the person. The larger the family, the faker the person. The larger the fan base, the faker you must be so you can please your fan base. Even if you've changed, but your fans haven't. You're still stuck in having to please your fan base and their paradigms. And we'll look at Beyonce trying to go from soul and I guess R&B to then country. People are not having it. They're like, no, I don't look at her as a country music singer. And she's trying to break into that industry. And some people don't accept that. They want her in the R&B. And she's trying to cross over. Well, yeah. When you're finally by yourself, the pain is real. And when you're by yourself, you're allowed to change because no one's expecting you to stay stuck in a paradigm. Like a fan base does, like to the celebrities and the influencers who follow their own fan base. And they also become a self-fulfilling prophecy reinforcing their own destruction. So what is a parody? A person, imitation of the style of a particular writer, artist, or genre, or some model that you were told is normal. Just look at everybody out there going through the motions. The holidays, the family, the friends, all the addictions, the vacations. It's all a parody. You're imitating what you think is normal. And then, yeah, selling a lifestyle and a belief system. Satire, burlesque, lampoon, pastiche, caricature. And so in my opinion, we need more people who embrace better than average intelligence on this earth. And so that's why I also posted the Johnny Cash video. Is that if you have not wholly resolved your own trauma, there's no fucking way your children will be able to resolve their trauma. You just keep passing on the hurt until it destroys. And so your children are forced into an identity to destroy themselves and other people until somebody stops the bleeding. And sometimes when you stop the bleeding, your genetic line will not be on this earth anymore. And it will be at your own hand, provided to you by your government. Suffering is when you keep sustaining that suffering until somebody has to force it to stop. That's why the system is trying to guide reproduction carefully. Too many children and families hurting themselves and each other, and they keep reproducing the pain and suffering. If people can't release their identities, the end result will be very predictable, because death and destruction and suffering is built into every single identity you have embraced. And for some reason, that song came into my mind, and I don't know where the hell it came from, because I wasn't listening to any music. I don't listen to the radio. I don't even listen to really that many reels on Facebook. I mean, I do, but that song never came up on a reel that I know of. But it just popped into my head. And again, you can always speculate where it comes from. You know, did the government plan in my head, you know, from all the project, you know, whatever it is. But I think that my mind knows the representation of my thoughts of the day. Okay. And so I understand resistance keeps things in place. That's why the system made you guys resist each other, Democrat, Republican, anti-V, pro-V, whatever. The for and against arguments are basically a resistance programming that keeps the intention going. And that's how they have programmed everybody in our societies to resist pain and suffering, to resist Democrat, Republican, to resist change. And so the system can then actually see the outcome of their intentions, because resistance is futile. Just look at the activists out there. Look at people resisting my information. I haven't stopped speaking, and you should never stop someone from speaking. I'm not inciting violence. I'm not selling drugs and alcohol and sex, and I'm not even injecting myself into your world. So why would you want someone to stop speaking unless you are trained to be in resistance to any information, new or otherwise? And that was a programming in and of itself to destroy you. And you're choosing to destroy yourself by resisting somebody else, essentially reinforcing what you already believe in anyways, which is destruction. But hey, you're not allowed to destroy somebody else. But when you are in resistance, you are destroying yourself. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's extremely predictable. And so, you know, and so people are not happy with their family. That's why they're under the influence. That's why people have to go on vacations. They leave their kids with their grandparents, with somebody else, because when you think about it, it is so difficult to raise kids who essentially you really can't control. That's why the government has to want to be step in, whether it's homeschool or public school or anything else, or even medical holistic. You had kids, you had no idea how to really raise them, and so you had to refer to either your parents, who would basically teach you the same thing, or the government. But as soon as you have children, you're passing on the trauma and the suffering. That's the thing. Once you resolve the trauma, first of all, you're not going to want to have kids. Second of all, you won't encourage your kids to have kids. You won't even, you'll let them make their choices. You won't tell them not to, because they'll do what they'll do. But you'll realize that it's really not lucrative for them to have that, because you can only imagine what they're going to deal with when they have a child and get married to someone who may have other issues that you're not even aware of, who they're bringing into their world, who they're allowing to inject information into them in body, mind, and spirit. And you realize how dangerous this world is around people who purposely inject themselves into people's worlds and upload information that could be deadly. Then you're like, you'll find every way to save yourself, because there's no way you'll be able to save your kids. They'll have to save themselves, but maybe you could be representation if they have it within them to even understand where you're coming from. So, I mean, you know, the slavery system is the friends and family. And so, and people who have unresolved issues will flock themselves around friends and family, and also develop children to reproduce the trauma, to revisit the trauma. And so that's why the system is watching people do what they do, because they know that those who have inflicted pain upon somebody else are reproducing trauma, but they also see where it comes from. Okay, and so remember, the government is both Democrat and Republican. And so it's all about colonizing people, placing things. And resistance is futile. So they know that whatever you resist will persist. And so what else is there aside from repression and addiction? Right, 100% sobriety and feeling the pain. If you can't do that, then you'll be colonized by somebody and then be destroyed from within. And you'll have every choice and every possibility to release the demons. And if you don't want to, fine. And so the Titans and the Giants are the Nephilim. And they are gone because the humans learned their lessons and they got rid of the colonizers. But now we have people who have figured out how to use the methods of the Giants. And they're colonizing each other. And they're reproducing trauma and pain. So the system has to go and figure out how to control that. And so that's why I stepped out of the war. Because that war is what reinforces the colonization of people. And so someone asked the Shining Science website, how do you convince a flat earther that our planet is really round? I said a sign of better than average intelligence is when you can read the riddles with the words and the concepts. Wordsmithing abstract concepts is a lost art because the term conspiracy theory is like a baby buster. If you can't see that the word planet has the word plane, which is basically a flat surface, and then T is either upside down or upside right. You know, it could be whatever you want. Science could be whatever the hell it wants to be. And they will always have formulas and paradigms and programming to support whatever. Okay. I'm not going to read everything here because I'm just like, dude, I'm still dealing with whatever. Let's look at my eyes. I still see a little bit, but my arm pain is not as bad. That's the thing about releasing demons and surpassing the Hayflick limit is you're going to have to be sick for a while. People don't understand it. When you're under the influence, they'll think, oh gosh, you're so sick. Who wants to be that? Well, I guess if you want to die happy, die whatever you're doing, great. Everybody wants to die happy or die with friends and family. Some people do, fine, whatever. So everything's in the words, okay? And so Neph is renal failure or kidney, and then cloudy and cloud. So cloudy kidneys, cloudy urine is death and disease and destruction and dehydration. And so when I woke up people's immune system, yeah, they had to release the demons. And you have to drink a lot of water to release the demons. And if you had cloudy pee, yeah, you're releasing demons. And so that's why the system's like, oh, you got cloudy pee, you're alcoholic, so, and you're drinking too much alcohol and diuretic and protein in the urine and urine infection, kidney infection. Oh yeah, everything is connected. Everything is connected. I'm not a feminist because I'm a representation of a female who released the demons and released identity. I'm a woman, yes, so there's that. And I'm a wife. But I'm not advocating that a wife get destroyed by her husband. I'm not advocating a wife play a role back in the 50s. I mean, yeah, I do cook and clean and all that shit, but I don't let my husband destroy me. And I'm not barefoot and pregnant, and I don't advocate anyone get pregnant. And I'm also expanding my brain, and I don't surround myself with friends and family to then have so aggressive expectations that will never get met and then one day be hurt because my need is so extraordinary and no one can meet that need, that then I become a parody. So I choose to be that role model of someone who released the demons, who isn't representing a woman to be only a wife and a mother, barefoot and pregnant, or some sexual plaything for some billionaire boys club. And so did the feminist movement produce girls who love nothing more than to be objectified? I would say so. The system is opportunistic as far as that chick. So whatever on that. And traditional vaccines. They either develop an offspring, ghost, fornicating with live people, developing the ghosts of the past. And then also training your body to react to people around you with a hint of something that is a reproduction. And your body produces antibodies on contact with just the slightest hint of exposure. So, yeah, Your gut and your brain house the conflicting identities within your body, mind, and spirit. How do you resolve and align those two worlds without destroying yourself or somebody else? You'll figure it out or you won't. And so right now I'm extremely simplistic. And that's what's going to save humans, is when they release the complexity of all the diversity in their body and they're not developing disease or children, and they resolved all their trauma, and they realize they can't save their kids, they can't save their friends and family. And if they want to be released from slavery, they have to walk away from everything in a constructive way without completely tearing down the house. It's a gradual releasing of the demons. Set your kids up. They're done at 18. They're on their own. You can't support them too much anymore because it's pretty bad out there. And they will have to learn the lessons. And if you choose to do everything for them and make their life so easy, well, remember, when you give somebody $1,000 and they have addictions and they have so many other issues, they will spend themselves out of existence. And they'll expect people to provide to them. And they won't know how to pull back, and they'll consume everything in themselves and they'll be done. So, yeah. Freedom is when you're not dependent upon your friends and your family. Freedom is when you have a contract that you are upholding with one person that you'll be responsible for at some point if they cannot be responsible for themselves. And then when it's out of your hands, then you bring in the state to help you out. And that's what hospice is when you cannot take care of your significant other because they're too much in decline that it becomes dangerous for you. And then you bring in the state, the government, to help you deal with that situation as humanely as possible. So yeah, I don't want friends and family, because that is a jail. And then you become one of those on Facebook whining how someone didn't meet your expectations. Yeah, you became too needy. Or some people will just die for their friends and family. And that's what the system expects. All right, bye.